I feel like I should get jumping into my my topics for the evening. So I've got it broken down, 4 segments, 4 topics. As always, I want to talk about the what I consider actually a national mental illness these days, the Russophobia that has been brewing and developed for the last year. I also have some thoughts on the recent public statement of Tom DeLonge, rock star from Blink-182, his announcement about forming a new venture having to do with the UFO phenomenon. I watched that and have some thoughts I'm going to share with you guys about that. And what I've really been enjoying over the last few times I've been doing this show, something I want to keep as a regular feature, is the revisiting of classic and forgotten UFO cases. And today I'll be talking about Argentina from 2002 and 2003. Fascinating wave of sightings, including lots of discs, daylight and nocturnal, as well as animal mutilations of cattle and horses, and a lot of bizarre things going on. It just seemed like much was happening in that country at that particular time. And in the final section, I want to wrap it up with something that's been on my mind a lot lately. I've discussed it from time to time here on this program. Something that I now call airplaning my life. And I do this with my fiance, Tracy, something that we've talked about a lot. I find it to be a very useful thing, a very helpful and healthy thing to do. And I have thoughts on how and why we should consider spending some time out of each day for only those who are meaningful to us in our day-to-day physical reality, or if that's not your situation, finding time to yourself, away from the incessant ongoing distractions of everything that happens in this world around us. We need to stay informed. We need to know what's going on out there, but we also need to create our own world, our own life, our own meaning, and our own values. So I'll be talking about that. That'll be wrapping up the program. But now I want to get into the phenomenon of, I guess we can call it Russophobia. It's an amazing thing that's going on in our world, and it's interesting because it's happening 70 years almost in a month now. It's been since the beginning of the most famous example of Russophobia that we've had in this country, and that was in October 1947 when the members of the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, opened its investigation into the communist elements within Hollywood's film industry. And it's not that there were no communist spies in the United States. Oh, there were. Of course there were. This is the beginning of the Cold War. But what happened is that this initiated a period of what really did develop into a kind of media-generated, national security-generated hysteria at times in the United States. And it went on for about a decade, resulted in the imprisonment of a number of screenwriters and directors. And it's famous. We call it McCarthyism. What we have now today is a situation where there's, whereas 70 years ago one could find a justification for some of the craziness that happened in the American society at that time, and I'm not defending all of it, but I maintain that there was at least a core of justification for some of the concern. Today, we have people like U.S. Senator John McCain, who's had a bloodlust for war ever since he's been a U.S. Senator, or who knows how long. This is a man who has never, ever encountered the prospect of a war that didn't get him excited. And I'm not kidding. Whether we're talking about Yugoslavia in the 90s, whether we're talking about Afghanistan and Iraq in the early 2000s, whether we're talking about Ukraine just a few years ago, or Syria today, McCain is in a constant mission to generate more money for the U.S. war industry, and absolutely fixated on the Russian boogeyman. What's interesting about our hysteria is that it has spread to Hollywood. So many of you may be aware that Morgan Freeman, the actor, great actor, decided to participate in a initiative called the Committee to Investigate Russia, the CIR, a supposed nonprofit organization with people like Hollywood mogul Rob Reiner, and loaded with war-peddling neoconservatives out of Washington and the Pentagon. And Morgan Freeman put himself on this video, gravely discussing how the United States is now on a war footing, and demanding that the government reveal the truth about alleged Russian election hacking. And he says on the video, "We have been attacked. We are at war." Well, here's the thing. Congress has been investigating this Russian meddling into the U.S. election for nearly a full year now. All right, it has been going for, I think it's now 10 months. There is still nothing of any significance that anyone has been able to point to of how Moscow has interfered in the United States election of 2016. Whether the election or how we voted or anything, I find nothing. All of these accusations are based on evidence-free assertions and assumptions. There's not a shred. There was a statement recently by Liam Neeson, the actor who called for whistleblowers over the alleged connection between President Donald Trump and Russia. Now, there's another lady out of Britain, Louise Mensch, a former conservative member of parliament and a journalist. And this lady is really, really strong anti-Russia, and talked about how how she discovered that Edward Snowden was part of a extended effort by Russia to discredit Hillary Clinton. And these people, they're not on the fringes. Like Mensch, for example, was able to get an op-ed piece in the New York Times earlier this year talking all about how the U.S. Congress needs to investigate the alleged Russian hacking. Again, never any evidence. We were told that Russia wanted Donald Trump to win the election. And when we're presented with evidence of this alleged meddling, we are shown absolutely nothing, not one indication of anything for Trump. And we're left with claims of an alleged Russian funding of Black Lives Matter to exacerbate racial tensions in the United States for the election. So that's what it comes down to. We start with their funding or covertly supporting Donald Trump to, well, they're throwing themselves into disabling and derailing U.S. society. And we don't even have evidence over this, by the way. There are probes now, possibly now, over Reddit, over its supposed role in this supposed Russian meddling into the elections. Not long ago, CNN said that it uncovered evidence that Russian hackers were using the augmented reality game Pokemon Go as a way to worsen racial tensions in the United States during the presidential election. And now you've got calls from Congress talking about how we need to monitor social media sites for Russian for Russian infiltration. We're talking Twitter, we're talking Facebook. And they are being called to appear, by the way, in the next couple of weeks before the Senate Intelligence Committee, I believe on November 1st, over claims that Russian advertising somehow affected the presidential election. The amount of money, incidentally, that Facebook claimed that was spent by Russian sources, I believe was $150,000, which if you know anything about presidential election spending, that's not even a half of a hiccup in the course of a day's spending by some of these campaigns. That's nothing. And if that's what Facebook is talking about, we really have to wonder what exactly is going on here. Well, I'm going to tell you what I think is going on. All right. First of all, rigging elections, meddling in elections, that's our job. That's the United States' job. That's not what other countries dare to do to the United States. There has never been a shred of evidence to show that Russia has ever influenced any major U.S. election. I cannot think of a single example, not one. We do, just as an aside, there's a statement that we have from at least one U.S. senator. This is Konstantin Kosachev, a Russian senator, who's stating that the United States, I love this statement of his, recognizes elections as fair and democratic only when they are won by pro-Western candidates. That's obviously true. His statement is very simply that expect the United States to meddle in our elections because Russia is having presidential elections next year, and you can bet that they're going to try to do it. Of course, guaranteed the U.S. will indeed try to do it. So the Russians are already expecting the Americans to try to get involved in their elections, and you wait for it. But the whole business, this whole Russophobia, started during the presidential campaign of 2016, and it started in earnest by presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, and that is absolutely the case. And it happened for a very explicit reason. It happened because of WikiLeaks leaking memos from the Democratic National Committee showing clear, and I would suggest illegal, favoritism for Hillary Clinton over her Democratic Party competitor, Bernie Sanders, who was the guy who had all the enthusiasm behind him, all the crowds, all the passion. And what WikiLeaks revealed by the DNC was a extremely anti-democratic coordinated series of efforts to discredit Bernie Sanders and to get Hillary nominated by the party. When that came out, obviously it didn't look good for Hillary Clinton, and her team brilliantly, I must say this, turned it around to change the narrative, to change the narrative from stealing the election away from Bernie Sanders to blaming the Russians for the leak. Russia is meddling in our electoral process. This was a claim out of the Hillary Clinton presidential campaign committee. They put this out there. They had their people in the media who were working 100% for her, except for Fox News, the only ones. Everyone else was working strongly behind Hillary Clinton. I mean, so much so that her people actually gave talking points and questions to CNN in advance of interviews with Hillary Clinton during the campaign. I mean, they're just able to get softballs pitched to them the entire election cycle. The whole Russia meme comes out as nothing more than a deflection against the criminal and unethical behavior of the Democratic National Committee. It continued, it was ramped up when Trump won the election, when he shockingly, at least in the eyes of most pundits, defeated Hillary Clinton and won, when you had the bulk of the media establishment having a meltdown over this, and then essentially doubling down, finding one way after another to try to delegitimize the incoming president. So the Russia meme was a clear way to do that, and that's when it got seriously strong legs and just started racing into our lives from that point. So for those reasons alone, we're talking straight up political partisanship by predominantly Democratic Party members to promote this kind of hysteria now that we're seeing against everything having to do with Russia. Now, Republicans have their own long, long history of anti-Russian hysteria. They love to be terrified of Russia. This has gone on for many, many decades, and indeed more than a full human lifetime. This has been going on. So there's, people like McCain, of course, and along with the Democratic Party going after Russia. They've got their reasons. One reason, and this is partly a reason Hollywood is also going against Russia, is, I would just say, pure, simple revenge. Revenge, you say? Yes, revenge. Revenge against the compliant Russia from the 1990s, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, that allowed itself to be nearly fully pillaged and taken over by Western money, basically New York financial money, during the 1990s. That was when the West loved Russia, when President Boris Yeltsin allowed Western New York Wall Street money, essentially, to dominate, buy up at one big fire sale all the natural resources of the country. That stopped when Putin came into power in 1999, starting in 1999. Essentially, Russia was being looted. And don't just trust me. Do some research on this. It's easy to find. So, yes, they're angry at the Russian nationalists, primarily Putin, and Hollywood, which is completely dominated by New York money and by the national security crowd, is just brought in to go after Russia in the worst possible way. There's also, this is more than simply revenge for the Russian nationalists in the late 90s, but I mean, there's a long, long history of this, of disliking and even hating Russia. And now we're simply getting a new twist to it, which is that people on the self-described left have joined the hysteria. And they're doing it because I feel, they're angry over the election, but they have so completely played into the hands of the military-industrial intelligence community complex. They've just allowed themselves to be tools. I'm telling you right now, if you're one of these people like that, you hate Trump so badly that you're willing to believe in these Russian allegations, and you're being played as a fool. I've been saying this all along. I have very close friends who hate President Trump. They can't stand him, and they believe in these Russian allegations. And I ask them constantly, and some of them are, very well educated, conventionally educated, I should say, New York Times, CNN educated individuals who are articulate and so forth. And I ask them, well, where's the evidence that you've seen? They can never, ever point to anything, not ever. But it doesn't matter because it accords with their partisan political beliefs. And they'll just use anything they can to go after the president, even if it's a total fiction or something that has zero evidence as of right now. So that's that. There are other reasons that you've got people going after Russia. You've got a whole economic war against Russian gas supplies to Europe. This is U.S. sanctions against the European Union for allowing what's known as Nord Stream 2 to. This is a pipeline which will double the capacity of the existing Nord Stream pipeline. What I'm saying here is that Russia's natural gas feeds Europe, and they're in the process of expanding that dramatically. U.S. wants to get in on the action. They don't have the ability, frankly, to get the natural gas over to Europe the way that Russia can do. Not even close. And what essentially you're seeing is the U.S. strong-arming the EU, or trying to strong-arm the EU into preventing Nord Stream 2 from going through. But the fact is that there is no Russian threat to America. The only threat Russia poses is the ability to tell truth. And this is why the media outlet RT is so important. I have seen RT become demonized by the Western press. I hear it all the time, even among supposedly educated people. that this is somehow a mouthpiece for Putin or somehow a mouthpiece for Russia. All I would say is this. I read RT every day. I also read CNN every day. I also read U.S. mainstream media every day. And in terms of intellectual quality, there is absolutely no comparison. RT wins hands down. Aside from their TV programming, their video programming, which is generally excellent. I've learned more about global geopolitics from RT than I could have ever learned from CNN. Absolutely. So they're a threat, all right. They're a threat in terms of providing alternative narratives to what you are being bludgeoned over the head to believe every day by CNN, NPR, BBC, Washington Post, New York Times, and all the others. So that's the threat. We've come to a point in the United States where alternative viewpoints are themselves the threat, which reminds us all, of course, of Orwell's famous statement, during times of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. Well, that is absolutely true. So how long this hysteria is going to go, I really have no idea. I mean, will it continue until they take Trump out of office in disgrace? Well, I don't think the effort is going to stop until either that happens or until some other moment occurs in which it is seen for the ridiculousness and the absurdity that it is. Kind of like during the McCarthy hearings, when Joe McCarthy was grilling a U.S. senator who finally stood up and said, "Have you no shame?" And at that moment, it was sort of the emperor's new clothes moment where people realized, like, oh my God, what's going on in this country? And there was a reaction against McCarthy. We may have a moment like that at some point here in the United States where people realize this Russian hysteria has no semblance at all to reality and is pure national insanity, because that is what it is. We need to get to that point, my friends, because this is it's unworthy of you. It's unworthy of us. Demonizing a nation that often has acted like the only adult in a room of screaming children is not the way for us to go. And that is the case. Russia, and only Russia, is really able to state that they prevented the nation of Syria from falling to the Islamic State. If they had not stepped in fall of 2015, Syria would be having the black flag of ISIS hoisted over Damascus right now. Russia's done much more than that, however, to help stabilize the international order. I'm not saying they're motivated by global humanitarian interests. They're motivated by nationalism. But their form of nationalism isn't destructive in any way as the United States version is. It's a much more conservative form of nationalism, much less involved in meddling in other countries, and hasn't left behind a trail of destroyed nations in its wake as the United States has. So there you have it. They're not the enemy. Don't buy into it. You want to hate Trump? Be my guest. He's done a lot that has shown the promise of, saving American jobs, or not bombing other nations, or not being the global policeman. Those have gone by the board in many ways, and he has been surrounded by as many neocons as Hillary Clinton would have been. So if you want to hate Trump, go ahead, but don't buy into the lies. Don't buy into the hysteria. We're at the bottom of the hour. I'm Richard Dolan. I'm coming back with some talk on rock star Tom DeLonge and UFOs, so stick around.
For years, our listeners connect to the KGRA on various platforms like TalkStream Live, TuneIn, Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and many more. Now, you can stream your favorite paranormal talk radio shows with our new fully integrated custom KGRA mobile apps for Android and iPhones. Listen to your favorite paranormal talk shows from any mobile device 24/7, free with smartphone or tablet. Utilize custom features to access news, show pages, archives, contests, events, and live interactive chat rooms. Set show notification alerts and never miss your favorite live programs. All free and available to download in Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hi, this is Matt Ray for My Pillow. Look, I'd forgotten what a good night's sleep was like. Then I got a hold of My Pillow. I used to wake up with neck and shoulder pain. I thought it was the new normal. But after one night of using My Pillow, my neck and shoulder pain is gone, and I'm sleeping comfortably through the night. My Pillow's patented interlocking fill conforms to your personal sleep needs. It's guaranteed not to go flat. It's washable, it's dryable, and it's made in the USA, not to mention the 10-year warranty. Try it risk-free with a 60-day money-back guarantee. What have you got to lose besides back pain and shoulder pain? Right now, America's First News has a great deal. Try it for yourself. Call now. You'll get 50% off a 4-pack. That's 2 premium pillows and 2 travel pillows. Call now. 800-716-4835. Use the promo code RAY, R-A-Y. That's 800-716-4835. Use the promo code RAY.
Hi, I'm Richard Dolan. When I'm not hosting my radio program, The Richard Dolan Show on KGRA, or writing new books on UFOs, I run a publishing company. I'm proud to say that Richard Dolan Press has published some of the most fascinating books available on UFOs and related subjects. They include Dr. Bruce Maccabee's classic analysis of the UFO cover-up, David Marler's breakthrough book on triangular UFOs, Dr. Richard Sauter's unique work on underground bases, and other classics by Grant Cameron, Chase Kletsky, and Dr. Bob Wood, not to mention intriguing works by Eve Lorgan and Laurie MacDonald that deal with truly bizarre phenomena. I'm proud to publish such high-quality and original works, and there are several amazing books about to be released over the next few months. Go to richarddolanpress.com to learn more.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
UFOcongress.com is where you go to check out the Guinness World Record's largest UFO conference. The next event is going to be held February 14th through the 18th, 2018. At UFOcongress.com, you'll find out why so many people go to the UFO Congress. It's because we have the best speakers, the most amazing venue, and very affordable prices. Don't forget the website's UFOcongress.com. We look forward to seeing you at the next International UFO Congress.
Your alternative talk radio contact, The Planet, KGRAradio.com.
Welcome back. I'm Richard Dolan here on KGRA. Just a couple of quick announcements. I want to mention, as the publisher of Richard Dolan Press, one of my authors, Mike Cleland, whose previous book, The Messengers, is I still consider one of the most important books in the UFO field to come out of this century. I think many people agree with that. His book has been very, very well received, and I think is an instant classic, frankly. So Mike is we're about to publish his companion book to The Messengers. It's just called Stories from the Messengers, Accounts of Owls, UFOs, and Consciousness. We got the foreword by Whitley Strieber for this book. And I will tell you, I've read a very small portion of this book. Mike's getting the rest of it prepared. There were a number of chapters he sent me. I took out one, about 5,000 words, read it, thought it was outstanding, gave him my opinion. He says, "Oh my God, you read that? That was the most dull one of the entire book." I said, "If that's the dullest chapter of the book, you do not have a dull book, my man, because this is a very, very good read." Classic account out of what you'd come to expect from the messengers. In other words, a reality that is, you've got these bizarre synchronicities that UFO witnesses and experiencers have in ways that when you start putting these stories together, just there's no logic to it that we can piece together, but there appears to be a higher logic going on here, a synchronicity. And what is a synchronicity? Well, it's a little more than a coincidence. It's a coincidence that is deeply meaningful in some important way, not always ways that we can understand, ways that indicate that there is something important beyond this veil that seems to surround us in our reality. So anyway, this is, as I was expecting all along, a very excellent sequel to The Messengers. I think it's we're expecting it to come in around 250 pages. For those of you who are fans of Mike Clelland's work, I have a feeling you're going to love this book. I will be diving into the book in the next week or two with edits, nitpicking, as I like to do, and preparing it for publication. But yeah, we're excited. The foreword by Whitley Strieber is going to be a nice touch, and this is going to be a really good book. Check for updates on this on my site, richarddolanpress.com. And another thing to check on my site, richarddolanpress.com, is a link to the program that I wrote and hosted for Gaia TV on false flags. It's out there now. You can check it out anytime. You can link to it from my site, Richard Dolan Press. This is an 11-episode series on false flags, which I wrote for Gaia, hosted it as well. I was very, very pleased with the production qualities. I had really fantastic people behind me making this something that I'm proud of. And I hope if you get a chance, go check it out, follow the link, and you'll be able to look at it yourself. I am in the kickstarting and recommencing my work on the false flag book. I'm very happy about where I'm at with that book. I believe it will be available in the first half of 2018. So it is, it's on the way. I think it's going to be a good length, 350, 400 pages, and I expect it to be the first ever genuine history of false flag events in our world. There's a lot of writing about false flags. Much of it's very good, but there isn't, in my view, a proper overview of the entire phenomenon, including an analysis of false flags themselves, and really an explanation and understanding as to why they are such an important part of our world today in 2017. And that book will be out. Keep your eyes and ears peeled for it. I'll have more to say about it in the coming months. Now let me switch gears and talk about a man that I met on one occasion, Tom DeLonge, rock star lead man of the group Blink-182. It's interesting. When I met Tom, it was in, I think, San Mateo, California in 2014. It was during the peak of my Albert Einstein look. I had some pretty wild gray hair happening at that point, I remember. And he came up to speak with me during a conference that I was doing there. And it was really nice to meet with him. I didn't know that he was interested in UFOs back then. All I knew is that my daughter, Elaine, was a big fan of Blink-182, and I thought, oh, cool. Turns out Tom DeLonge was extremely interested in UFOs, as everyone following the field now knows. The first thing that we learned about was, I guess we could say, the Podesta connection, the fact that DeLonge had developed these inside connections to some very impressive high-level people. Major General William N. McCaslin, who was a former commander of U.S. Air Force Research Lab in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Not a bad connection. Another major general named Michael Carey, who was head of U.S. Space Command. And another man named Robert Weiss, who was head of Lockheed Skunk Works. That's one heck of a trio right there that DeLonge was in communication with. And as he has stated, individuals who privately were confirming the reality not only of the UFO phenomenon, that's important enough, but the existence of deep black programs to reverse engineer, to study and recreate alien technology. So that's heavy duty. On top of that, it came out a little over a year ago through WikiLeaks that DeLonge was in contact with Hillary Clinton's chief of staff, campaign manager John Podesta. Podesta, who had been Bill Clinton's chief of staff back in the 90s when Clinton was president. Podesta, who had also been Barack Obama's transition chief after Obama was elected in 2008. Podesta was a man, and he selected much of Obama's cabinet, by the way. He is a powerful man in the Washington political arena. And we learned that Tom DeLonge was talking and communicating with John Podesta during the beginning period of the campaign for the presidency in 2016. Holy smokes. So all of that was important, and it all led to rampant speculation that, lots of things, like Hillary Clinton was going to be the disclosure president, and so many people in this field got really convinced of that belief. And many of those people who believed it are friends of mine. I respect them, but I always disagreed with them. I never believed then, nor do I believe that now, that if Hillary had been elected, would she be a disclosure president? Absolutely no way. Never. Nonetheless, all of this was connected with Tom DeLonge. People really got worked up over it. During that period, there was a very good article, a couple of articles actually, by UK commentator and analyst Robbie Graham, who has often written some really good stuff. And he evinced his own skepticism over the value of what DeLonge was doing. And not that these people weren't important, because of course they are impressive, but simply, is this yet another instance of the national security crowd manipulating a public figure for its own purposes? A public figure who seemed, at least in Graham's opinion, to be a little more interested in making money out of all of this than in actually doing a disclosure. Who knows? I don't really know what DeLonge's motivations are in this, but I think Robbie had a point. Like, what actually was going on here? Why were these people talking with DeLonge? What was their motivation, and where are they now? I have no idea where these people are now. They seem to have dropped off the radar. Between then and now, there was a period where DeLonge had said there was going to be an announcement that something very big was impending, and we waited and waited, and nothing happened, and nothing happened. And then a little over a week ago, we finally get the statement of his formation of an organization called the Academy to the Stars, to the Stars Academy. This is from October 11th, so a little over a week ago, a week and a half ago. Basically, a civilian company that is attempting to produce advanced tech, probably some of which, for national security reasons, the military will never give up, particularly the most advanced one that can be weaponized. But he put together a very impressive group of people. A man named Chris Mellon, who was the chair of the science committee at the Carnegie Museum of Natural History, long-standing federal government service, including Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence in the Clinton and Bush administrations. He was there. A man named Lou Elizondo, a career intelligence officer, very interesting man. A man named Steve Justice, a longtime defense aerospace leader, recently retired program director for Skunk Works over at Lockheed, highly prestigious. Jim Semivan, a retired senior intelligence officer of the CIA, and Dr. Hal Puthoff, a man that I've met many times personally. I know Hal, PhD physicist, has worked with many classified projects for the Pentagon, including serving as the man who primarily developed the protocols for the remote viewing program back in the 70s for Stanford Research Institute, and is probably most well known now as the one of the leading scientists in the world on zero-point energy. A heck of a team with Tom DeLonge, absolutely. And I have to say, I was impressed by a number of the statements that these guys made. Chris Mellon particularly led it off, talked about a fascinating UFO encounter involving the USS Nimitz, a $5 billion aircraft carrier, as he said, and many witnesses, an engagement of an unidentified object with F-18s, multiple F-18s, I believe, in which the object absolutely outclassed our own aircraft. One hears this again and again in military encounters with UFOs. I myself have interviewed a number of military witnesses who've said, given me stories very, very similar to what Chris Mellon talked about. So the one he described was from the year 2004. Fascinating. Basically, though, the point of all of these guys was to talk about many of them talked about the importance of the UFO phenomenon, how we need to have an open public conversation about it. And, I mean, all of that was great to hear. You know, some people have called this a kind of soft disclosure. And I guess anytime you get impressive people on a stage to talk about this phenomenon in an open, articulate way, you can call that soft disclosure. But I don't know. I'm not sure I'm really considering this a disclosure. It really comes down to, you know, do these individuals have truly highest level official sanction to be doing what they are doing? I've been looking around on the web at a number of other opinions that people offer, and there seem to be a lot of folks out there who believe that these people are sanctioned by the highest levels of the black budget world to be working with DeLonge. And I myself have my doubts. I'm not really sure that that is the case. The only one that I know personally is Hal Puthoff, and I certainly cannot speak for him. But I do know, having spoken with him, that this is a man who is genuinely interested in the UFO phenomenon. I don't believe that he's at the center of the center circle of knowledge on UFOs. I could be wrong. I think he certainly does have knowledge of this. I think all of those people have knowledge that they're not talking about. They have to be this way. I mean, they're riding a very, very thin line publicly. They're trying to appear very distinguished and professional, and they're trying to talk about UFOs. So try doing that while seeking to generate funding for what's supposed to be a major business venture here. So all of these people know that the UFO phenomenon is real, and Puthoff certainly knows that as well as any of these people. But are they truly at the center? Well, this is something that I would tend to doubt. I tend to doubt that any one of them is actually the keeper of the keys here. And the more people that I speak to in this field, the more I realize that it is so highly compartmented that even those who have a direct connection with the UFO phenomenon have a mere partial connection with it, and that their own knowledge is very probably limited in a significant way. So what are these people really doing? And this is where it gets interesting, because whereas I'm impressed by the individuals that Tom DeLonge has managed to put together for this venture, what is the actual venture supposed to be doing? And the whole business nature of it, frankly, doesn't make any sense to me. It's a combination entertainment, science, research, and technology development company. How does that work? how do you hire teams of engineers and R&D people that's going to allow you to create warp drive, which was discussed on the promo for on their YouTube thing, or to develop 0 point energy, presumably, or to develop any of the other technologies that they're talking that are so important to saving human civilization. How are you going to do that? With what kind of money? I don't think they've even generated $1 million, much less the $1 billion that I hear being bandied about that they're trying to raise. How's that supposed to happen? Last time I checked, it was maybe half a million dollars has been raised. If you know any different race, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think all that's been raised, and I don't really see how they're going to do that. Do they actually think they're going to compete with Skunk Works or Boeing or any of the other major defense aerospace groups in General Electric or Raytheon or anywhere else on this matter? I just can't possibly see how anything will come to that. Don't see it whatsoever. So impressive people, impressive stories, but a business venture that just doesn't make sense to me. Either way, this is not disclosure, which many people have been saying. There are those out there who believe, in fact, that this is a much more cynical attempt by the national security community simply to use DeLonge for their own purposes. Maybe. I don't know. I don't think so, actually. My take on this right now is that this is a sincere effort, that DeLonge believes what he's saying. People like Putoff and the rest are Semivan and that they believe in what they're doing. But whether this is going to go anywhere. By the way, let me just say this about the whole idea of making money. There's nothing wrong with trying to make money, including off of this subject of UFOs. Nothing wrong. In fact, I would go further and say that we want people to make money from it, since it's only such incentives that are going to get people to do things that actually might make a difference. There's this absurd notion that's circulating in this field and elsewhere, that if someone is trying to make money from a venture, that somehow they're evil or they're not to be trusted. I mean, I have to say, what a juvenile idea this is. I have news for you. People don't work for free. Not for any extended period. Race is laughing. Race knows.
I just get I get tickled at, how they think things are funded. I mean, how do you think quality stuff that gets put out is funded?
Absolutely. I mean, honestly,
there's an insane amount of money going into the bullshit side of it all. There has to be good money going into the good side of it as well to balance it out. You have to be able to make money.
Absolutely. There's no other way. And in fact, if you really want innovations and creativity, you've got to be able to allow people to have a chance to make money, or they're just not going to go into it. They're not going to do anything. People don't work for free, not for any long period of time. If you have a field that encourages actual free enterprise, you will get ideas, more and more ideas, a lot of them good ideas. Now, having said that, we do have to be on guard against crass ventures that exploit the field. And it's easy to do that. So many people are craving to be exploited. You can just see it out there. They really do. And I wonder if there's a kind of guru mentality that's so powerful in our society, that not simply among the few people who are all too willing to be gurus, you see that, but of course they couldn't be gurus if there were not so many people who want gurus to tell them what to do and what to think. But I don't want to get off track. The thing is, when you have money-making opportunities, you can bring legitimate benefits, or you can scam people. But I think it's fair to acknowledge that there really can be benefits from DeLonge's latest venture. There can be. I respect the people that he's got there. They're impressive. But again, the plan to me doesn't seem like it's likely to succeed. That's my critique of it. And as for disclosure, please stop thinking it's right around the corner. Disclosure is probably not right around the corner. And I wrote a book on the subject. I am a believer in the utility and value of a UFO disclosure. In fact, I would go further and say that I believe that we're not going to be a truly healthy society until we have it, until we have an openness on the subject of UFOs. the secrecy on UFOs has been such a dangerous development. It's a disease. It causes a concealment of important truth that it's not good for us. So I believe in the ending of UFO secrecy, but when I look around and ask myself, how will it happen? Well, we've got our work cut out for us because we're dealing with a national security entertainment complex that is very powerful. And whether it's going to be permitted anytime in the near future is really an important question. You know, it's our job, yes, to take the initiative away from them, but that's easier said than done. And for the past decade or more, I have seen prediction after prediction by people who have no business making predictions that disclosure is going to happen any time now, any week, any month, any year, this year, next year. Obama was going to disclose. George W. Bush before that was supposed to disclose. Yes, I heard those conversations. The Obama disclosure one was really ridiculous. I mean, I just got so tired of it. 08, 09, 2010, every year, Barack Obama was supposed to be the disclosure president. I kept saying, no, stop being a sucker for these ridiculous ideas that make no sense. Of course, it didn't happen. Hillary Clinton, same thing. A lot of people in 2016 just lost their critical acumen over this whole thing. Disclosure will happen. I don't think it's going to be a neat process. I don't think it's going to be an entirely truthful process either. I don't believe in utopias, and I don't believe that disclosure is going to solve all of our problems. It will solve one problem only. It will solve the problem of this huge, huge deception that is preventing many, many other things from moving forward. But it won't solve the fundamental problems of being a human being and, all the things that human beings have to deal with in the course of our crazy civilization. It's not going to fix things. Don't expect it. Don't expect magic bullets or magic pills to solve your problems, including disclosure. Having said all of that, one could say about the DeLonge initiative, if they are able to follow up with continued statements from some of these people, if they, not DeLonge, but if they are willing to put themselves out into the public as a unified front, that could make a difference. And, by the way, as for all of these people being part of the cabal, part of a concerted disclosure effort, one thing I would caution against, I just read an absurd article, this is in Rolling Stone, absurd in some ways anyway, recent, it's not the Rolling Stone, golly, I wish I could find the article. I read it earlier today on the To the Stars Academy that criticized it for including Hal Puthoff as a physicist who had seemingly impressive credentials, but then it was Washington Post, I think, or ABC News, and dismissed him for having science that's really of questionable value. And they didn't state explicitly that it was related to remote viewing, but they said he believes in parapsychology, so he's really not a very good person to have on board. And I thought the writer of this is obviously clueless about the subject matter, but when you have major mainstream outlets debunking the people that are on DeLonge's team, I really have to wonder, are these scientists truly being protected by the cabal? And I think they're not. I don't think that they're part of the cabal. I just don't believe it. All right. That's all I have to say on that for now. I may come back to this subject in the future. When I come back after this break, I want to revisit the classic and forgotten UFO flap in Argentina from 2002 to 2003. It's a fascinating series of events. I don't know how well I'll be able to describe the totality of it, but I'll give it my best shot. And then when I come back after that, a little bit about going on airplane mode. It's worth your consideration. I'm Richard Dolan. I'll be back in a short while on KGRA. Welcome back. I'm Richard Dolan. I'm very glad to be able to chat with you about the following series of events that took place in Argentina about 15 years ago. I remember following this at the time. I was a fairly new UFO researcher at the time. I was just barely getting into the public realm at that point. And I remember subscribing to a number of UFO news services at the time that were covering this, and it really was a fascinating wave of events. Before I get into it, though, I just want to mention that in my own life, I seem to go through these waves of activity and then sort of quietude and then activity and then being quiet again. And so I've been wanting, to complete a third volume of UFOs in the National Security State for such a long time. I wrote the first volume, which came out in 2000, then was revised in 2002, covering the first 30 or so years of the UFO cover-up, 1940s to the early 70s. It took quite a few years, 7 years actually, to complete the second volume of that, which was a 638-page book that I felt took 5 years off my life, covering the next 20 years, actually 18 years to be precise, 1973 to 1991, to the end of the Cold War. That's volume 2. And I have not written a third volume since, so presumably people think, well, where's volume 3 going to happen? And I recall when I was in the early stages of writing volume 3, I ended up writing AD After Disclosure with Bryce Zabel, and I'm very glad I wrote that book. And then as I was getting into gear for volume 3, I ended up deciding to write UFOs for the 21st Century Mind, which I'm also very glad I wrote that book. That I think is still the most valuable overview of the UFO subject that's out there. But I've never forgotten about volume 3. And then, of course, now I'm writing my book on false flags, which is not even a UFO book at all. And people are thinking, my goodness, are you ever going to get to volume 3? So here's my view of the situation as of now. I'm in a good place in my life. I'm in a good place in my head. I'm in a wonderful relationship. I'm engaged. My life has really settled out in a way that I haven't felt, I don't know when I've ever felt like this. Things are in order. Things are moving forward. I'm motivated and happy and moving ahead on my false flag work. And I'm actually genuinely excited about diving into my third volume of UFOs National Security State when that false flag book is done. I want to get it done. I want to get them both finished. I don't believe it will be forever. The series of events that I'm going to be discussing with you tonight clearly will belong in that third volume of UFOs in the National Security State. It's, again, it's been an often overlooked series of events. This is Argentina's UFO wave of 2002 to 2003. In my own research, I amassed quite a lot of information about this already, and I was going over it earlier today and trying to figure out, like, how do I want to organize this for the program, because there's frankly just way too many cases to get into with you. It's just far too many. And in doing my research, I realized, I know that there is a very good treatment of it that's out there on the web, and indeed it's by Scott Corrales, who is without question one of the top 2 or 3 leading Latin American UFO researchers in the world. He's been doing this for such a long time, and Corrales is so he did a nice little piece on the Argentinian wave of that time. So I've got that in front of me. I've got my notes in front of me, and with that in mind, I want to go over with you why this is important. First of all, Argentina in that period of time was going through a massive economic crisis. It was the worst that it has ever faced. You had entire communities looking at having their utilities being cut off in the cold winter. It was it really is the banksters robbing that nation blind, actually, is what was going on in Argentina. during that period of time, there were sightings of incredible craft and bizarre animal mutilation cases as well. So that's what we have. In fact, the cattle mutilation aspect was described by Corrales as an epidemic. And as he pointed out in this piece that I was reading, he says, look, it's open to debate to this day what actually was causing these animal mutilations. But it is absolutely true that it caused a huge media controversy, a lot of media coverage of what was going on, as well as huge arguments over who was causing the dead animals. Was it extraterrestrials in the fields of the Pampas or Patagonia, or was it the, as he said, the red-muzzled mouse apparently was being used as an explanation for this? Was the red-muzzled mouse more powerful than anyone had previously suspected, Corrales wrote. In any case, the other thing that Corrales pointed out that I have to say I wasn't quite aware of was, yes, it was obvious to me that Argentina and South America in general had lots of UFO cases starting from right from the 1940s. In fact, just almost immediately following the Kenneth Arnold Roswell events of June, July 1947, the first Argentinian UFO documented case came on July 10th, 1947, and they had their own flaps and waves of sightings pretty regularly. 1947, 1950, 54, 58, 59, 62, 65, 68. All of those were big years of UFO activity in Argentina, and more in 1974, 75, 78. I remember writing extensively about 1978 South American flap in Volume 2 of National Security State. And then again in the mid-'80s, late 80s, and into the 90s, and then 2002, and then another in 2005, 2006. In other words, you really have to ask yourself, are there actual flaps or waves of sighting, or is it just one long period of UFO activity? As I've often felt, I don't really think we have a good handle on whether or not there are actual UFO waves or flaps, simply because our own ability to get UFO data, even today, is really quite limited. In North America, we've got MUFON, we've got the National UFO Reporting Center. So here we do okay in getting raw reports. You can read over 10,000 a year if you want for North America from those two sites alone. But you go to the rest of the world, and there is not a really good repository, a complete repository of sightings, at least that I am aware of. So we just don't have the information. Having said that, there was definitely something going on in 2002 and 2003 in the Southern Hemisphere during the winter, and actually continued all through 2003. Here's a few of them that I gathered together and that I have from Corrales' list too. And I'll just read a couple of them. So one of the earliest ones from May 6, 2002, you have three young adults, Martin Oliver, Ruben Chihan, and Antonio Rodo. These are described as youthful motorbikers from the city of Cachi, Argentina, reported having a fantastic sighting on one of the highways, National Highway 33. This account was written up in the newspaper El Tribuno. They had seen what they called an enormous cigar-shaped UFO, unidentified flying object, about 100 meters long. That's 300 feet long. That's big. They said, we were finishing the Tintin stretch when we saw a strange light from the east in the vicinity of Payoigasta. We stopped our rides and saw it, an enormous cylinder measuring some 100 meters in length, shining like a mirror in the reflected light of the setting sun. It was shaped like a giant cigarette and flew slowly some 200 meters from the ground. That's pretty low. We couldn't believe it, but it was real. It made no noise whatsoever and appeared to be made of a material similar to polished steel. The sighting was taken seriously because the three witnesses came across as believable, and what we see is that this was the advanced guard of a huge number of sightings. Another one from a series of days from June 11th to June 14th, 2002. You have a UFO reappearing over a community of Fernandez Robles at different times during the evenings. So let me read along here. You got all these neighborhoods. Marcelo Coronel, a mechanic, reported seeing an object resembling, quote, a headlight surrounded by a red halo, which increased and diminished in hue and moved slowly from north to south without making any sound. Lots of townspeople were saying that their TV signals were being interrupted. Television sets shut themselves off without any interruption to the flow of electricity. Or the sets would change channels without the remote control being touched whenever this object appeared. And by the way, that type of phenomenon is not simply limited to South America. This happened, I'm quite certain, I recall, in a flap of sightings in the UK, where the object interrupted television, and more than once in the United States that I can remember off the top of my head. Here's another one. July 6, 2002. Residents of Carmen de Patagones in Viedma, Argentina, were able to see a strange object flying over their remote community, stunned by its amazing clarity. I'm reading here from Corrales. The luminous object's appearance occurred shortly after 2100 hours. That's 9 o'clock in the evening, and it remained visible until 10:30 at night, at which time it receded from view and then vanished. According to locals who saw it, it approached and receded like some sort of zoom lens and changed colors as it did so. And on and on. Let me keep going. I'm going to jump down. Another bizarre luminous object, July 12, 2002. This is from Chile, right over the border. One witness, 28 years old. I looked and I saw a luminous object with 3 red lights on one of its sides. It was still for a few seconds and then made a very swift movement. I stopped looking at it for a few seconds because I ran in to play a song. Really? And when I returned, it was gone. Why would you play a song when you see a UFO? I don't get that. Oh, here we go. He had been working for 9 years in radio. I guess that's why. And never had a similar experience. Here's another one. July 13th, 2002. The province of Entre Rios. This is described as a hotbed of UFO activity to this day. Reports of strange lights. Witnesses in the town of Sola, Rosario del Tala, and Mansilla claimed seeing low-altitude maneuvers by objects they could not identify. One case involved police officers aboard 2 squad cars at a highway truck stop. The lawmen reported seeing, quote, a powerful light engaged in maneuvers on Monday, July 1st. Oh, yes, and I recall I have this case from my own notes. The object approached the police cars, quote, producing sparks similar to those of a photographer's flash. The light pulled away. Both squad cars wouldn't work. The electrical systems seemed to be out. Engines would not turn over. Lights were out for half an hour. And then the power suddenly came back and the sirens of the vehicles came to life. So that's interesting. And the other element of that account is that, according to one publication, the police officers reached for their sidearms, for their guns, when the light came to their cars. And, of course, in UFO history, we've seen this more than once as well. It happens. An unknown light comes at a police officer. What do you expect him to do? Anyway, this object was able to shut their cars off. July 13, 2002. We see here Chascomos has always been mentioned in UFO chronicles as a place where strange things happen. Living up to its reputation, reports emerged of strange lights in the vicinity of the Chascomos Lagoon, fed by the waters of 5 local streams. According to Diario El Cronista, I guess that's the Daily Chronicle, strange lights were changing colors and landing near the area, seen by some locals who spent 40 minutes at the water's edge enthralled by the display. Quote, other lights seemed to land in the Monte Brown area and also near the Fish and Nautical Club, okay, etc. I want to jump to some of these cattle mutilations, but first I want to read this account. This has more of this is a little more vivid and a little more beyond just seeing lights in the sky. So July 14, 2002, researchers from a UFO organization, UFO organization, can't read the Spanish here, interviewed Pedro and Estela Moine of this town of Adela Maria, population 7,000, a busy agricultural center in Rio Cuarto, Argentina. The couple had allegedly seen, quote, a flying entity over a cereal plant. Pedro and Estela had been on their way to the town's business district, a journey that involved crossing an old railway switching yard. 9 o'clock at night, July 3rd, 2003. I think they meant to say 2002. The couple suddenly heard a strange and incomprehensible conversation between many voices, which gave way to, quote, strange O sounds. Turning their eyes to one of the silos in the rail yard, they were startled to see a, quote, humanoid lacking upper and lower extremities. In spite of his wife's entreaties, Pedro took off at a run toward the silo to get a closer look. Estela soon joined him, and both managed to see this entity, which now appeared to conceal itself behind the control booth of a truck scale. The apparition rose into the air like a plane taking off to an altitude of 15 meters, still very low, disappearing behind a metal shed. Pedro would later describe it as, quote, a thing with human shape that either gave off or reflected some sort of light. The entire mass of the apparition gave the appearance of being a body, quote, covered head to toe in some sort of mantle, giving it the appearance of wearing a hat, but covered with a long raincoat. Weird stuff. I'm going to jump over to some of the other notes I have dealing with these mutilations. Lots of them. Typical one. This is from May of 2002, so actually even a little earlier than the cases I was reading to you. 2 cows were found dead under strange circumstances this weekend in a field located north of the town of Jacinto Arauz, Argentina's La Pampa province. As occurred in the other cases recorded in several locations of the provincial east, the cows were missing certain organs, and no traces or clues as to their deaths were found. Professional veterinarians who examined the animals were notified by the field's owner, whose name was not disclosed. The cows were some 8 meters away from each other in an area with dense ground cover. They were examined. Names of the veterinarians are here. They could not find logical explanations. One says, in 21 years in this profession, I never saw anything like it. Both cows are missing teeth, and one was missing abdominal tissue from the inguinal area. The mammary glands were missing, having been completely excised without leaving traces or damage in surrounding tissues. This is classic. The incisions to the skin were clean and irregular and did not affect tissue in immediate contact with the skin. No muscles were affected. The cow was missing an ear and had a ring of skin concealed between both parts of the outer ear, which was perfectly cut. He went on and said the animal, quote, was also missing its lips and 60% of its tongue. The other animal showed similar characteristics, with the difference that the mammary gland was only partly missing. In both cases, normal blood coagulation was found in the jugular vein. Someone writes here, as readers will recall, other animals were found dead in equally strange circumstances in the fields of the La Pampa province and elsewhere. So there's quite a few of these. I mean, I could just read them on and on. I don't think it's going to be helpful. Here's one: small green alien seen in central Argentina around the same time, May into June of 2002. I'll just read this. The presence of a, quote, dwarf or green midget wandering the backyards of many neighborhoods of General Acha, that's a small city in Argentina's La Pampa province. All this is about 250 miles southwest of Buenos Aires. and they talk a little bit about this, appears to be a short green entity who runs away with haste when detected. The small green humanoid turned up in the midst of the cattle mutilation scare, which was still going at that time. Quote, a resident of the El Barrio El Oeste neighborhood informed this newspaper, La Arena, that the entity appeared twice on her property, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. According to the woman, her husband was resting on both occasions, but when he reported to the backyard following his wife's screams, the mysterious entity vanished by rapidly climbing up a tree. While the man did not see the dwarf, he gave his spouse the benefit of the doubt, stating that he has known her for 40 years and can vouch for her physical and mental health. These sound almost comical, right? Entities climbing up trees. But actually, it's not unique even to South America. You know, we tend to think of sightings that have to be of little gray aliens with the big wraparound eyes. There have been entities described, and particularly South America, going back decades and generations, of a variety of entities that don't fit the classic gray humanoid alien pattern. They're short many times, large heads many times, but back in the 50s, they were often described as hairy, and they would see and muscular too, actually. There are cases of aliens and or entities being seen, in America's cornfields in the 20th century that do not fit the bill of gray aliens, but that have really incredible characteristics in terms of speed, being able to run really fast, and not just America, but elsewhere as well. This is the thing about the UFO phenomenon. It's even for those of us who believe it's real, for those of us who might even be tempted to say we know it's real, there are elements of this phenomenon that defy our ability to make easy sense out of it. Are we dealing with one type of alien entity? Are we dealing with multiple types of alien entities? Are we dealing with multiple agendas? What on earth are they doing? What are they doing? And when you put all of these encounters together, and with Argentina, I mean, this just keeps going all through 2002, well into 2003, and then picked up again in 2005 and 2006. It seems to me that what is going on, frankly, is that there's a series of infrastructures that are out there. And I mean infrastructure, I mean societies that are out there doing their thing that societies do. They exist, they survive, they live. How it is that they're able to live for the most part while being undetected by us is a really fascinating question, and I wish I had a definitive answer to that. That's why one reason why this is such a crazy mystery. It doesn't make sense on the one hand. On the other hand, it doesn't go away. It continues. My best guess at this point is that they have an ability to exist both here, what we call here, in this space-time reality of ours, as well as not here. And whatever not here means, your guess is as good as mine. People talk about other dimensions. I'm not sure if they know half the times what they mean when they say it. But if there is such a thing as another dimension, maybe that's where they are too. Maybe they can enter and leave at will. Maybe it's all underground. Maybe that's what it is. But I think some of them have the ability to be seen and then not to be seen. And where they go, well, your guess is as good as mine. But they're here. Someone is here, and they are living, as far as I can tell, alongside us. And also, and I'll have to wrap up here at the bottom of the hour, but I would just say there are individuals in the global intelligence community who have been researching this, and they've got better answers than we have. I don't think they have all the answers, but I think that they know a few things, and this reality is indeed being withheld from us to a very large extent. I'm Richard Dolan. I'm at the bottom of the hour. When I come back, a little bit about how to stay sane in our crazy world. I mentioned in the last segment things are going really well in my life. They really are. I'm a happy fellow these days, and I'm happily engaged to a wonderful woman, Tracy Garbett.
Oh.
She's moved in. She's here. We have all of her boxes in the dining room and living room, but she's here. Her boxes are here.
I'm so happy for you, Richard. So happy. And all of us are. All the Dolanites.
Thank you, Race, and thanks everyone. Yeah, it's been great. We've been together now a year and a half, and it's been wonderful the whole time, I have to say. And so now we're living together, and I'm mentioning this because well, A, I'm very happy about it, but B, it's relevant to what I want to talk about tonight. One thing that Tracy and I discovered early on, because we enjoyed having our time together, I suppose that's the main motivation, was, we realize how crazy things can be when we just allow ourselves to be dominated by all the social media, all the texting, all the phone world that is around us, all of us, every single day. I mean, in our age today, we are constantly attached to our phones. Our phones rule us in so many instances, and you can just see it wherever you go. We've noticed when we're out, we'll see other couples, young couples, often out, maybe out at dinner, hanging out, and they're staring at their phones. They're not looking at each other. They're looking at their phones. And they don't really look particularly happy when they're looking at their phones either. It's very, like expressionless, We've all seen this.
Richard, I was in a tire store a while back, and there was two kids across from me, and they were both like facing phones. And I just asked them, I said, just by curiosity, are you guys like texting each other? Because they were both giggling at the same time. And they both died laughing, and they said, yeah, we are. Literally sitting right next to each other and texting each other.
I mean, wow.
They may have been talking about me now that I think about it.
Well, it's fascinating, right? And I was in preparation for this segment, I was just doing a little bit of reading, and so now I've learned, I mean, as if we didn't know, that we're spending more and more time on social media. So teens are now spending up to 9 hours a day on social platforms, 9 hours a day, teenagers. And 30% of all time is spent online is now allocated to social media interaction. The majority of that is on your cell phone, your mobile, 60% of it. So, and then what you have, of course, is a situation where these social media platforms are evolving to keep attracting and engaging new audiences. They've got all kinds of new live streaming features and 360-degree photos and videos. And you've got Snapchat as Instagram. One, Musical.ly they're all competing for their share of the market. And you've got brands now jumping into social media with social media ad spending, which is now up to, it says here, $36 billion in 2017. So there's all this money that is pulling us into our phones and social media. It says here the average person will spend nearly 2 hours every day on social media. And that translates into 5 years and 4 months over your lifetime just on social media. And that's, of course, expected to increase as platforms develop. Right now, it says the average person will spend 7 years and 8 months watching TV in their lifetime. 7.5 years. Just TV. That's the average person. And they say as digital media consumption continues to grow at unprecedented rates, the TV number will be expected to shrink to counter that. But we're basically spending our time on Facebook, YouTube. YouTube comes in first, by the way. And the thing about YouTube is, like I have found in my own life, like I can have YouTube on in the background and have my life. So I'm not really sure, like it is social media, it can be, but it also doesn't have to be. I love, for example, YouTube channels that'll play like 5 hours or 6 hours of classical music or meditation music. I had it on today all day. That's just background music. To me, I actually don't think it's right to count that as me being on social media. I'm not using it as social media. In this case, I'm using YouTube as a nice addition musically into my life. But it is definitely the case. I don't want to get off track here. Social media, we all know this, can just dominate us. People spend a lot of their time at work on Facebook, and then texting. I'm watching one show right now with Tracy, Fringe, which is a great show, incidentally. It's kind of like a new version of the X-Files, essentially, and I think it's really awesome. But one thing that we both noticed on Fringe is that the investigators will be in the middle of an intense conversation, a powerful conversation with someone, and then their phone rings and they take it and they pick up the call. It's like, really? Do you do that in real life all the time? And it happens. And the thing is, like, when it happens to us in real life, implicitly what we all understand that it means is that the person who answers that call considers the phone call more important than they consider us. And there's no other way to look at it but that. So what Tracy and I have been doing, and we've been doing this every evening now, is we put our lives on airplane mode at a certain time of day. And that's the end of it. So airplane mode, if you don't know, is on most phones now you have a feature. Like if you fly on an airplane, they ask you to put your phone on airplane mode so that it doesn't have an electronic, there's no Wi-Fi and no cell signal that comes in. So your phone is on, and you can look at your collection of photographs and pictures and listen to your music, but you don't have connection to the rest of the world. So when you're on airplane mode, your phone does not get phone calls. You don't get texts. You are cut off from the world. Fancy that. And the value that we have found in doing this has been immense. I cannot speak enough about it. We've been doing airplane mode for, I think, over a year. And I don't remember which of us prompted it. I know that for me in my life, it was just getting crazy. I was very active for a while on Facebook. I was very active, just trying to promote myself as I do as a public person. But it was becoming this all-consuming thing, and I felt it was detracting from my life. There's all kinds of studies that show the more time you spend on social media, the less happy you are. I believe this. And so what we decided to do is just like to have time for us to connect with each other, to let the other person know that you are more important to me than all the other people in the world trying to reach me right now. And I want to spend my time with you focused on this that we have, this moment, these moments that we are sharing. And a number of months ago, I was asked by someone at a conference, a very nice lady who came up to me and sort of ambushed me with a question. She just said, Mr. Dolan, what would you recommend to someone to stay, I think she said, to like stay sane in this world? Like, what can we do to defend ourselves? And I said, well, one you think you could start is by airplane moding yourself after a certain time of the day. It doesn't mean that you go offline, by the way, and that you don't have web, or you don't listen to music, or you don't, if you want to do research or what have you. But it does mean that you are devoting a certain amount of time each day to keeping that madness, and it can be madness, out. And after all, look, we have to ride a line here between we want to stay informed as world citizens, and we want to know what's going on in the world around us. That is important. But we also, none of that matters. None of it. If our own world is hollowed out and all we're doing is bouncing like a ping pong ball, following one news item and another and another and another in a totally reactive manner, then, I mean, honestly, if that is the content of your life, why are you even living it? What is the point? I fear for a lot of the younger generation who, it certainly seems to me, are growing up without developing the kinds of social skills that human beings had developed for thousands and indeed millions of years. That is, eye contact, understanding facial expressions, nuance of personal interaction. That is complex stuff. And a large portion, maybe the dominant portion of the expansion of the human brain is devoted to understanding other people because we're so freaking complicated. And yet what we're having now is a new generation growing up that is not really getting these skills. They got often their only child with helicopter parents who don't allow them to have experiences. That's one huge problem right there. And they grew up without understanding the value of risk and initiative and all of these other things that most people grew up with. But they also are growing up increasingly without direct interaction with other kids, other than highly structured environments like school, which is ultimately a totalitarian fascist nightmare increasingly. So they don't have freedom to interact in an open way. And they're doing just like, as Ray said, texting each other while sitting next to each other because, hell, that's easier than actually interacting eye contact, face to face, and seeing the other person. So what I'm going to say to you, I mean, the way to stay sane, there's lots of ways that we have to stay sane. There's a lot of things that we really want to do. We need to be aware, human beings. First of all, you have to be aware that you are in a control system. It's not neutral. It exists to maintain itself, and it maintains itself by keeping you in your place. And I know that sounds paranoid to some of you, maybe not to others, but it's a system that exists to feed off of your income, to steal from your pockets, and to keep you docile, essentially. While those people who are actually running this show, and there's a few of them, and they've got all the goodies in the world, they've got all the candy, they've got all the money, they own everything that's worth owning, and they will never, ever, ever want you to wake up. So you have got your work cut out for you. They're feeding you terrible food, basically poisonous packaged foods. They're giving you news that's not news, education that's not education. And so your job, sorry to tell you this, is to fight your way out of that into some semblance of health and freedom. And one thing that you've got to do toward that is to recognize that this media complex around you is not your friend. One article that I read in prepping for this was it was called 5 Ways to Stay Informed and Stay Sane. And I was looking for this because I thought, well, let's see if anyone else has helpful advice on this. And this is by a lady, Sylvia Hayes, from earlier this year, March of 2017. And, you know, she had some good advice. Anything that I would say, she's limit your fixes and fixations. So don't fixate on the news media. She's saying educate yourself about news biases. And this is where she really falls off the rails, because she's saying, well, some network news are biased, but others aren't. She says, watch ABC, NBC, and CBS. They're pretty good. And then she says you should really pay attention to independent news sources. She calls them independent, not alternative news. No, NPR, BBC, Reuters, Nation, The Guardian. They're not independent, lady. They are every bit as biased and working for the system as the ones that you don't like. All right. So, in other words, what I'm saying is there's a lot of bad advice out there. There's a lot of people who are coming across as knowing how you're supposed to stay sane, and they actually don't have any answers, and they don't really know what they're talking about, unfortunately. Now, you can just say, well, what does Dolan know? But I'm telling you, I do know what I'm talking about, and you should listen to this advice. Don't trust your establishment media. Keep it out. But the most important thing, the whole point of airplane mode, it's, you don't have to be in a wonderful relationship to want to do airplane mode at some point in your life. What if you're out with a close friend of yours who happens to live in your neighborhood, and you go out and you're with them, or you're having dinner with someone, or you're on a date, or anything like that, please do yourself a favor and do them the respect and try it. Try airplane moding your phone. And for a little while, see what it's like to keep other people out. They'll live. They'll be there when you turn your phone back on. Meanwhile, you're having the experience of being with another human being and connecting with them in a way that human beings used to do with regularity for millennia. It's an important skill, and I'm not kidding when I'm saying like we're in danger of having that skill severely weakened and increasingly going away. And if we don't know how to relate one-on-one in a meaningful, significant way with other people, if we're only skilled at dealing with them through text and keyboards, we're losing a key part of our humanity. It's great that we have the ability to text people. I actually use texting all the time. It's easier for me than getting on the phone because I have so many people that want to talk to me. Honestly, it's often wasting my time on the phone. Some people need to talk to me. They feel the need to talk to me for a half hour when we could be done in 5 minutes. And I get that frequently enough. So for me, texting is easy. But I reserve my quality time for the people who are the quality people in my life that I want in my life every day. And I will suggest to you to do the same. I know that there are couples out there that if they were to do that airplane mode and just spend the quality time with each other, they actually would probably go crazy because maybe they don't like each other that much. There's a lot of married couples out there, and I know it. I've seen it. They go through the motions, they raise their kids, and that's the only thing keeping them together. Or they're on inertia time, and that's what it is. And so he watches the TV, he watches the game, she does her thing, and they do their social media, and they're happy. Okay, fine. If that's what keeps you happy, then I'm not here to tell you not to do it. But I am suggesting that there is a value of making yourself unavailable to the world in some way during moments that are important. You can decide what those are. Another version of airplane mode, which I have my phone set to on every day, is Do Not Disturb. So Do Not Disturb is, I have an iPhone, but I'm sure the Android phones do the same thing. So I don't get phone calls after a certain time in the evening and until a certain time in the morning. My phone, so if someone tries to call me, they won't get through, other than people who are indicated as favorites. And for me, that's 3 people. That's Tracy and my 2 kids. That's it. So after a certain time in the evening, if someone tries to call me, they're not going to get me. I'll get your text, but I won't get an automatic notification, so it won't disturb me. So that's the Do Not Disturb feature, and I strongly recommend that too. We've got to find a way in our world of reclaiming our personal space. I really honestly think we're in danger, often, many of us, of losing that. Again, I will just mention to you, what is the point of interacting with all the outside world and knowing everything that you think is going on when your own life is in a state of poverty of friends and or ideas and or personal initiatives that are valuable to you? Because again, the airplane mode doesn't have to always be for connecting with other people. It could be connecting with yourself. It could be you dedicating time to focus on things that you want to focus on. There's a quote that I read years ago from Ralph Waldo Emerson, one of my all-time favorite thinkers and writers who had a huge impact on my life. And I can only paraphrase it at this point. I can't remember the exact statement, but Emerson and Nietzsche said the same thing, as I recall. Both of them, something like time to put away the books of other people and time to start having your own ideas and to focus on what you are about. Stop reading other people, Emerson said, and get into your own thoughts. Develop your own creativity, your own genius. And I actually really believe it's only by finding a way of walling off the outside world that we have a chance of doing that. There's a lot of noise out there, but there's a song that's playing inside you. There's music inside you, but it's quiet. You're not going to hear that music if you're allowing all the cacophony of everything else coming in at you. It takes time. You need quiet. You need solitude. So that's another value of airplane moding your life during certain periods of time. You can decide it. I'm not telling you to just cut yourself off from the rest of the world. Tracy and I other people about this idea, and some people find it really intriguing, and others are like, oh my God, I could never do that. And I think, well, why? Why can't you? No, well, we have too much going on. We've got a business to run. We've got all these things. We've got people demanding our attention. Okay, I get that. So are you now saying that you are now a slave to all of the demands of everyone around you? For how long? For just now? For the next year? For the next 5 years? When is this going to stop? Till the day you die? Are you ever going to make a decision to reclaim your own life for at least a little while? Again, I'm not kidding when I say there's a control system out there. It is not a neutral control system. It has an agenda. It wants your attention. It wants your money. It wants you on it all the time. It wants you engaged in it. And it's really, really good at doing that. Your job is to reclaim your independence, your sovereignty, your mind, your relationships, your people, so that you can live a valued and valuable life. You know, the day is going to come when you hit the end of the road, when you have to check out like everyone does. And what you don't want is to say, damn it, have I just blown my life? All the important things, and holy crap, I didn't do them. Because that can happen to you. That's your danger. Don't let it happen. You start by reclaiming your space. And, you know, it's not that I'm some master at this, by the way. I'm struggling through this day to day, just like you are, doing my very best to make sense out of my life, doing my best to keep it all together, to keep my sanity together sometimes, because that's how it feels like there's just everything crashes in on me. And overall, I've got a very good ability to deal with it. But I can tell you, if I did not create my own sense of sanity around me, my own quietude, my own solitude from the rest of the world, I wouldn't be able to function. And that's the truth. So I'm hoping that the virtues of airplane moding your life from time to time or on a regular basis might sink in with you. I would encourage you to give it a try. Or at least if you're not ready for full airplane mode, go to Do Not Disturb. Start using it. All right. Hope that was valuable. With that, it is now time for me to say goodnight. I want to thank my producer, Race Hobbs, the good people in the chat room. Libertas, thanks for the links. And to you on the other end of the connection. I'm Richard Dolan, looking forward to being with you the next time. And just remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth in all matters, let's be kind to each other. Good night.